welcome back to the podcast. Barry Coziahr is here from teambuilders.agency. And if you are in the mood, if it is finally time to figure out these pesky things like business growth, time management, getting things off your plate, then Barry is your guy to listen to right here, right now. And he's going to talk about virtual businesses in today's business landscape, things like prioritizing what matters, 80/20 virtual assistant, unlocking less stress, more fun, and increased profitability. These are things we all want, but many things in life and in business are easier said than done. So you may have heard about virtual assistants, tried it, done it. Maybe you're doing it and you're frustrated, but Barry is here to shortcut the mistakes you've made or might make and just get you on the right track, get you what you need to know as far as building a virtual team, making money, building a business. So Barry, glad to be talking to you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate you too. And so we introduced you a little bit, hyped you up, and in your own words, I mean, what are you all about? What makes you tick? What has you focused these days?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I like helping people with their businesses. I mean, I like people in general. So I think people are a lot of fun. Their ideas and their dreams are interesting and fun. I like helping them make them real. And so anything I could do to make that happen would be what I'd want to do. So what I found to be some of the best things to do for people, marketing and supplying remote personnel, virtual assistants, inexpensive people who can help you get a lot of things done, help you maximize your time and your efforts. So you can, like you said, you can have more time, more freedom, more profit, and actually do in your business what you love to do.
Wonderful. And, some of these things that you're mentioning, like my mind was blown when I read the E-Myth, and then maybe like 2/3 into the book, they mention this idea of like these note cards, and they say like, figure out all the things you do. And people say, oh, I do everything in my business. But if you start figuring out like, here are the 32 and a half note cards, well, maybe I can hand these 3 off to virtual assistant number 1, or I could hand off these 5 to number 2. And then maybe I'm only left with like 4, but they're the 4 things that I like to do, that get me excited, that give me energy, that just like lift me up instead of pulling me down. And that's what we want, is this kind of modularity and be able to configure our life. And if you didn't want that, then you'd join the military, then you'd go and get a 9-to-5 or something, but you're in business for yourself for a reason. So why not work smart instead of hard? Why not be creative? Why not work outside the box and do these things like VAs can do? Like on your website here, Barry, you say appointment setting and calls, social media management, marketing and websites, personal assistance, bookkeeping. And so out of all the things that VAs could do, it's easy to get overwhelmed, get the analysis paralysis. So is there a logical starting point? If someone says, well, I've always thought about VAs, haven't done one, is there like a low-hanging fruit, logical task for them to start offloading?
It's funny. Yeah, they're great. I mean, I like the 80/20 principle, right? It's my favorite. Like the E-Myth people, they obviously look at the 80/20 principle, and it's something that they're looking at and think with. E-Myth is an amazing book as well. Highly recommend the 80/20 principle by Richard Koch. E-Myth, those would be 2 books that would be on the top of my list. And 80/20 sales and marketing by Perry Marshall. Those would be like books that you should read multiple times for sure. And then if I was going to look at what I was going to offload, if we look at the 80/20 principle in general, right, the Perotti principle, if I'm pronouncing it right, the Italian guy, basically this Italian horticulturist, right, and he basically developed or discovered or observed this principle that 80%, there's 80% of something comes from 20% of something else, more or less. And it's described even better in Richard Koch's book, I think, and in Perry Marshall's book. So, but the whole concept is that there's a large majority of something that comes from a small majority of something else. So, in Richard Koch gives it a description, I'm just going to kind of give people an idea of the principle really quick in case they don't know what it is. But Richard Koch gives a great example. He does the introduction to Perry Marshall's book. He gives a great example where he talks about roads are a good example. 80% of the traffic on the roads are on 20% of the roads, right? So you got 80% of the traffic on 20% of the roads. That's pretty intense, right? Now you can
Yeah.
actually take that 20% and you could say, okay, what about this 20%? Well, 80% of that traffic is on 20% of those roads. And so 80/20 actually becomes fractional, right? Or, basically geometrically fractional, right? It breaks down. It keeps breaking down like that, smaller and smaller and smaller, where you've got 80% of that traffic is on 20% of those roads, right? And it's like, so you got most of the traffic, like in Florida here where I live, I think 80% of all the traffic is between here and Orlando.
Right.
so, so it's like, and I know that must be true because when I drive this, I'm like, oh, I hate driving this highway, right? And so that's
Highway 4, right? From Tampa to Orlando.
Tampa to Orlando. That's got to be where
Yeah.
80% of all the traffic in Florida is. Uh, Maybe not, but anyway, it feels like it when I'm on it. So but the idea is the 80/20 principle is 80% of your results come from, or 80% of the activity comes from 20%, right? So like,
Right.
you've got a list of 100 things that you need to do. 20 of those are the key things that you must do. They're actually going to move the needle, and you might even be able to delete the other, 80 and get away with it, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's not 80/20, it's 95/5, 15, 85, whatever it might be, a 35/65. But the idea is that there's, you can kind of narrow in on the key actions. So this Italian dude, where's Italy from here? Oh, over there. Italian dude, basically, he discovered that 80% of the property in his country was owned by 20% of the people. So it was like, oh, there's something there. And he was also a horticulturist. And he discovered that 80% of the fruit or vegetables, the produce, came from 20% of his plants. Right? So these are like this is a key piece of information. You can actually look around in life, you can probably find about, 80% of the trouble in life comes from about 20% of the people. There's
For
still
sure.
problems, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Things like that, right? I mean, there's key actions that you do in your business. So one way you could use the 80/20 principle. So how do you use this? How do you take it from a principle into something you can actually use? So the 80% of things, maybe there's some things in that 80% that do need to get done. That stuff that you shouldn't be touching, right? That's like, whatever stuff we might have deleted from the list. Maybe there's a bunch of those things you can hand off to somebody else. Or you got this 20% of key things in your business. Is there a way someone could help you to augment those things with additional help, taking some of the, taking some tasks off your plate so you can do more? Like, for instance, I have an assistant that helps me find podcasts that are willing to interview me, right?
Right.
So she sends out information about me. We target exactly who we want to talk to. She sends all the information. She puts it on my schedule. I'm busy doing other stuff, right? I come back and I got an appointment to do an interview. And hopefully we put together, we got some great information we want to share, and boom, here we are. I also have a bunch of lead generators that work for me. Boom. I have somebody that does all my, I have some paperwork things and some other stuff that I hate doing, right? Somebody else does those, right? I don't do any of I don't do accounting or bookkeeping or any of that. I've got somebody else that does that. I've got lots of stuff that gets done that I'm just not my thing because I want to do more what I love to do. Also, there are things that I'm better at than other things. Like, you don't really want me doing accounting. It's going to take too long. And you'd rather put me into some other situation where I can actually be effective and make some money.
Right.
And it's not accounting or that type of thing. I mean, I could do it. I guess I could get really good at it over time. But, there's the principle about 10,000 hours, right? I've spent a lot of time educating people, consulting them, coaching them, talking to them about problems of issues, helping them to find solutions, right? That's where I should be utilized, right? That's the key thing and I should have people that are backing me up to be so that I can do more of those. And that's how I use the 80/20. And there's one other thing I'll share with you. There's this thing called 3 Lists to Freedom, which is from Chris Drucker. If you know who he is, he wrote a great book called Youpreneur, right? Chris Drucker. The three lists to freedom. He basically talks about these three lists. What should you be doing? What shouldn't you be doing? And what don't you know how to do? Right. So these are things that you can make, lists you can make, and they'll all help you with that. They'll help you to zero in on what you should offload and what you should keep, right? And we actually have an ebook that I think is pretty, that definitely you should download, and you should reach out and talk to me, have a conversation with me about this as well. But basically, it's called 249 Things That a Virtual Assistant Can Do for You. And it's an ebook on that specifically, and it's pretty amazing. It gives you a big list, 249 things that you can use to develop that list that we just talked about. That I think, so you can use those different tools, 80/20, the three lists of freedom, which I'm happy to send to you or go over with you in a meeting if you want to have a meeting about it. And then the 249 things that a virtual assistant can do for you. Those things are going to help you a lot.
I think they will. And I think that a lot of what you said here, it's doable and it's a lot less scary than outsourcing and virtual assistants were when all this first started, because like it's sexy in the marketing to say like, oh well, I've completely replaced myself, but some people don't want that, right? For the ego purposes, or they're too afraid, or the money commitment. But this whole idea of you kind of you do this reading up and you get some of this written down, and you figure out, okay, like let me categorize this, let me sort this, and let me just figure out like where is the best fit for me and my company, and what pieces can I chop off and then give to someone else. And it's, as you said, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, which I think is the most refreshing part of it, right? That in some of these situations, it's like sometimes in my mind with the virtual assistants, I think of like throwing the ball and catching the ball, right? Where like maybe I throw the ball and they catch it, or they catch it and I throw it. So like they get all these podcasts lined up for you, and then instead of you having to like contact 1,000 podcasts, then when there's 30, you just go and look at those and you contact those. Or like you can just like someone starts, someone else finishes. Or like just the other day, I needed to edit a book for a client, and I don't really feel 100% perfect about saying, hey, my team completely edit this book, but they did like the first pass.
Right.
And then so they shortcut like many hours, and it definitely didn't cost me as much time in the lost revenue of me spending that time versus the money I spent. And so it's just like a new way of thinking, right? And we all need to be thinking in these terms and being responsible business owners, but there's still always that fear there, right? There's always hesitation, and especially if people are not acting in this way yet, then people put up roadblocks. And so to help us like dissolve some of those roadblocks, what are some ways where people maybe go wrong with virtual assistants so we can, clean up some objections here?
Well, I'd say one thing is, like, one of the things we do is we do heavy vetting, right, of the person in the first place. So we actually take that off your plate. So we do testing, we do personality, IQ, and aptitude testing, right, in addition to extensive interviewing. So we're trying to make sure that the best possible chance of having a great person right off the bat. So the personality testing tells you a lot of great things, like communicate. How much does the person like to communicate, right? How stable are they? How aggressive are they? Meaning regressive in a good way, right? They're going after life. Positive connotation to that. Then our IQ test measures, what IQ really measures is problem solving ability, right? It stands for intelligent quotient. It measures problem solving ability. You want a problem solver. You need a problem solver, not somebody who's sitting there going like scratching their head, right? I don't know. And then aptitude. Aptitude actually measures your ability to duplicate and follow instructions. When you're talking about general aptitude, you can also say person has an aptitude for a certain type of thing. But this step, what I'm talking about here, is a test that measures your ability to specifically understand and follow instructions, which is key, right? So we got those, and then we look at the person's life, their what type of skills they've had in the past. We got some great testing and interviews that we do, and we kind of help you zero in. So the odds are better right off the bat that you're going to have a good person. And then we also take the pain out of that. Let's say that, I mean, 9 times out of 10, we hit it out of the park, right? But every once in a while, we have to replace the person. So we just do that. Boom. We stop the clock. We give you a new person. We replace them. We're off to the races. Or we help solve the situation. Maybe the person's not great at communicating and doing their reports of what they're up to. Fine. We solve that really quick with them. We coach them. So we get involved with coaching the virtual assistant, turning them into a better teammate, right? Team player, hence team builders, right?
Right.
That's the whole idea, is to do that with them. And then we've got this amazing people who are then doing editing, animation, podcast bookings, podcast editing. I mean, the list just goes on, lead generation, web development, personal assistant work, executive assistant work, calendar work, right? But the other thing, they need to be trained too. They either need to be apprenticed by you, so you can show them what the deal is and how to do it. There might be training that we provide or that you could provide for your virtual assistant to do. There's all these different options, because training and apprenticing is part of, actually creating a good and skilled worker. You wouldn't expect somebody, I mean, they do it in the trades pretty consistently. They apprentice people. They show them how to do things. They train them. They teach them. They show them how to do it. They have them work with somebody else. They get coached along to show that what they're doing a good job or not. As a boss, you sort of need to do that with people. So you're going to have to coach them, come up with somebody who's really awesome at it, maybe turn over the coaching job to them. But yeah, so there's all sorts of different bits and pieces that can help you avoid the pitfalls. 2 other things I'll mention that I think are pretty key. One is having some sort of recording your stuff, right? There's a thing called the training trifecta, right? Which is also another thing Chris Drucker introduced me to, and I'm also know a lot about education myself. But having it written, recorded, so you can listen to it, and having a video. If you do all 3 of those things as part of your training process, then you can record that, you can save it, you can have it typed out, you can have all that done, right? Show diagrams. You can also have a video that they can look at. And that is, I mean, that's a home run, right? I mean, you've got a great training tool that you can use on your specific processes. If there's training out there otherwise on the general tool, great. But on your specific things, we can zero in, and pretty incredible. So that training trifecta is part of it. And then daily reports and somewhat regular meetings. Getting a daily report from the person, like via Slack or something like that, or via email, whatever you want to use. I think it's important. So you're in touch daily and you can respond. You should always tell the person, great, thank you, or thank you for the report, whatever. And then having a regular meeting with them, whether it's once a week or daily, even if it's really brief, like 5 minutes. How's it going? Anything you need? Good. All right, good. Great. Carry on. Got a plan for the day? Oh, I see it. Good. All right. Let's have a great one. And that little meeting is great. And sometimes those meetings will have to take a little bit longer to dig in and do something that is key with the person. But I actually do some daily meetings with people where I meet with every single day for a few minutes. And sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it takes 20, 30 minutes to do the meeting. I always allow 30 minutes. But, and I might do several meetings in that 30 minutes, right? I'll have 2 people show up, and I'll do the first meeting and the second meeting. They both take a few minutes each. Or if one's going to take longer, I'll do one. I'll say, great, you're good. Have a great day. Let me know if you need anything. And I spend a little bit more time with the second person. And then I move on to the second set of meetings. So one of my scheduled thing in the morning, that usually takes less than 15 minutes. And then I got 2 more people that are coming in right after that for their meetings, 15 minutes after the first set. So I knock out like 4 meetings. Sometimes there's even another person thrown in there. or I'll invite an additional person to the meeting. I'll make them hang out till I'm done with everybody else. So those regular meetings are good and those daily reports are good. But I make it very, very, I hate wasting time in meetings. And I think meetings can be really painful, especially if you have to sit there and you're doing nothing. Yeah, that's horrible.
Right.
So I just like, yeah, so we're just really efficient about it. It's fantastic. A lot of fun. And those are some of the pitfalls and the solutions.
And yeah, you combine like 5 different time management books into one with your solutions, and there's so much good stuff in there, right? And I mean, I think the best part about all of it is that the term meeting has definitely taken on a different meaning. Meeting has taken on a new meaning in these most recent years with Zoom. A meeting used to mean like go to this conference room and get there early and have an agenda, but now it's like, hey, you're in, you're out. And I love all these solutions that you provided, especially that one that you mentioned about the just a few meetings, a few minutes each, because like I hadn't even thought of that, right? Like I'm down to 8. I had 9, but I'm down to 8 full-time employees, and I just never have time to talk with them and go through each one. But if it's just like, hey, one after another, what are they working on? What are they doing? Review some stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, that's huge. And a lot of what you've described here, I mean, it sounds like common sense having said it after the fact, but like so many of us are missing just some of these simple things, right? The pre-vetting, the training, the checking in with the daily report, all these things that it's just there's so many ways to go wrong. And it's definitely a whole other skill set of managing people and just staying on track and, managing all this sort of stuff. And I can definitely see how if someone tries to do all the tasks themselves, that's recipe for failure. Try to do all the managing and hiring without your help, that's recipe for failure too. And so where do you come in? If someone says, man, like I've already got so many cool ideas for what the VAs could do, ways that I could avoid the pitfalls and go right with it and really succeed with it. How does Mr. Barry and teambuilders.agency help in this whole process?
Hey, you just got to connect with me. You connect with me, have a meeting, let me consult you just a little bit, for free. And then, you could download that booklet and say, as part of reaching out to meet with me, or you could just email me, Barry at stampedebranding.com. I am willing to meet. We just have a quick little conversation. We have a conversation. I'll find out about your business. You tell me about that. I'll ask questions, I'm sure. And I think it'll just, and then we'll just kind of like go from there. I'll introduce you to the crew and the ladies who run Team Builders. And they'll basically, I'll also send you that, you'll have that ebook. You can make kind of your list. And then they'll take it from there. So they're going to actually help. They're going to work and select your person, introduce you to the person, onboard your person, meet weekly with you and with them to coach them fully into place to be a full-blown, amazing team member, and help you grow and just reach all those goals. It's not complex, It's like, and it's beautiful, and it's and everybody's, we jump in if there's some sort of problem situation, we're there, call me, reach out to them, boom, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. And the way and the place to do it is by emailing Barry at stampedebranding.com, making sure to get that right.
Yeah.
And his website is, teambuilders.agency. And this is all, like you said, it can be simple if you let it, and it should be simple. And all these things are the recipe for getting to that next level, getting out of overwhelm, no longer doing all the day to day, and then there's no time for the PR, the promotion, the big picture, the building the business. Now you can finally get your time back, your sanity back, your calmness back by not going it alone, by getting this extra help in more ways than one, right? There's Barry and his team helping you select the team to figure out your support system. Imagine if you tried to build a house by yourself, fix your car by yourself, go to school by yourself. You always need this extra help. And Barry at stampedebranding.com is your way to do it. Teambuilders.agency. And as we wrap up our conversation here, Barry, it's always interesting to think about like how far you've come. And especially early on, there's always the resistance to change and things like that. So is there any sort of advice that comes to mind that you might give your younger self, like 10 or 20 years ago, before you had all these things figured out? If you today could talk to past you, what would you say?
Huh. How far back should I go?
I mean, up to you.
So
Go back to the womb.
if I went back to school, I'd say basically like read more books and learn and dig in and figure out how to become really and just learn things. Right, that would be the key piece of information. Because that's what I did after school. After school, I would say that I did horrible in school. I would say like barely graduated high school. And then after high school, I spent probably about 5 years just digging into the subject of education. I was unhappy at college, wasn't very interesting. But I dug in on education. I really found out how to learn and not only learn, but use what I learned. That's part of education, is actually applying data, applying the information. So study's key, I think. I think it's studying things, learning things, super key. And I think that, realizing you have to apply it. And so I've applied everything I've learned to expand my businesses, to have success in my personal life, to do whatever it is I needed to do. And if I needed to dig into something, I went and did some study. I was okay, let's do this. Then I go look at life and get busy and do something with it. So become a successful student, which means somebody that not only understands information and knows what it is, but knows how to use it and does use it to have success in other areas of life. So becoming a successful student is pretty clear, and as the key thing. And even with that, you can learn things like be a good person. Maybe pick up a
Right.
book on that or something. So like, there's plenty of books on that, and and look and grow. Just keep focusing on growth. I mean, it's not that I didn't want to grow. It's not that I didn't want to improve myself. It's not that I didn't want to have a happy life. I just didn't. I literally just didn't know how to study back in school. I kept running into barriers, and didn't know how to get what I wanted from it. And but I did then conquer that and become a successful student after high school on my own, looking into different things and finding solutions. And I think that served me in so many different ways. And so this is something you have to learn about too. You have to learn about how to be a good boss, how to take care of people, how to utilize them properly. And it's something that you should learn. And it's okay to learn while you're doing it, So you can
Sure.
actually, like, because you should be evolving as a person. You're either growing or you're shrinking, right? Everything's either
Right.
growing or it's getting smaller, including you. You're either growing as a person or you're not, and the opposite of that is not very pleasant and not a place you want to end up. You want to keep growing individually. So, I mean, that would be like where I came from, the advice I'd give me, and, and what we should all just keep doing.
We should be on that path to success 100%. And it's easy to get stuck in your own limited thinking, repeat thoughts. And the antidote for that is to be a student, to be a learner, which means a couple of things. As you said, it means to be curious. It means to read some books, to learn the lessons, and then to go and apply it. That way you have those different actions, those different thinkings, and that way you can break out of the mediocrity, and the future no longer has to equal the past, but it begins with these virtual assistants. It begins with building your team. That way it does not have to be just you. And Barry and his company can help with that, especially with the 249 things a virtual assistant can do for you. You can find out about those things by going to teambuilders.agency, but even more important, email barry@stampedebranding.com and get that call arranged, figured out. You know you need it. You've listened this far in the podcast. Wouldn't it be great to live the lifestyle like Barry does, where he doesn't have to always be putting out fires, dealing with client work? He manages that, and then he focuses on the fun stuff, going on podcasts like this, answering the phone, or doing the Zoom meetings with people like you, and figuring out solutions, loving people, changing lives. And so the very next step is to email barry@stampedebranding.com. Tell Barry you want to meet, get this figured out, finally change your trajectory, change your future. And thank you very much, Barry, for the stories, the lessons, the advice. I feel like my brain is jam packed full with like, I've got to read these books, I got to do these things, I got to write these things down. I have to go back and listen to this podcast actually, but that's okay, right? It's some change, it's some growth, so I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And then, yeah, let's have a conversation. We can even make a simple, where do I go from here? So I'm totally willing to help. Thank you for having me.